The landing gear is normally retracted as soon as possible after takeoff to reduce drag and increase the climb gradient. There is no normal requirement for the gear to be operated at high indicated airspeed, so the retract and extend mechanism, together with the attachment points to the structure, are sized for the required task. To design the gear to operate at high indicated airspeed would needlessly increase the structural weight. There are usually two maximum landing gear speeds: VLO, the maximum operating speed, either retract or extend, and VLE, the maximum speed at which the aircraft can be flown with the gear extended, which means down and locked. However, the example we will use to illustrate the maximum landing gear speeds has two operating speeds, a maximum speed for extension and a lower maximum speed for retraction. The illustration shows the landing gear limit speed placard, and that the maximum operating speed for retraction is 235 knots. The main landing gear usually retracts inward, and you can see that when the gear is in transit, the main landing gear doors are open. The vulnerability of the doors is the reason that VLO is slower than VLE. Once the gear is up and locked, there is no speed restriction associated with the landing gear. In our example, the indicated airspeed must be reduced to 270 knots or slower before the gear can be selected down. Once again, the main landing gear doors are open during transit. Once the gear is down and locked, the indicated airspeed can be increased to our example VLE of 320 knots. So, what is the reason that some aircraft have a slower VLO retract than VLO extend? If we take a look at the nose landing gear, it will become obvious. The nose landing gear retracts forwards, and dynamic pressure will subtract from the hydraulic force in the actuator while the nose gear is retracting. To minimize the size of the nose gear actuator, and therefore the structural weight, a lower airspeed restriction is required. As before, the maximum indicated airspeed for gear extension is 270 knots. When the nose gear is extending, the dynamic pressure adds to the hydraulic force, so the speed restriction is determined by the vulnerability of the landing gear doors. As before, with the gear down and locked, the maximum speed limit is, in this example, 320 knots. It may be necessary for the aircraft to be ferried to a place of maintenance with the gear locked down, so a high VLE is convenient, and is possible because the vulnerable gear doors are closed. We know that flaps are designed to reduce the takeoff and landing distance, and are only used when the indicated airspeed is relatively low. To keep structural weight to an absolute minimum, the flaps themselves, their operating system and attachment points, are not built to withstand the loads that would be applied at higher airspeeds. In addition, with flaps deployed, the aerodynamic efficiency of the wing is increased, so a gust would subject the wing itself to greater stress. To give adequate protection to both the flaps and the wing structure, there is a maximum speed at which the aircraft can be flown with the flaps down, VFE. To safeguard the wing structure, the positive limit load factor with flaps down is reduced to 2G. You can see, when flying at a typical cruise altitude at VRA in turbulence, there is an equal margin of safety to the gust stall and the maximum strength of the structure. However, the odd gust can make the stick shaker activate momentarily, called burping. Do not be tempted to lower the flaps, even slightly, with the intention of reducing the stall speed to stop the stick shaker burping. If you do lower the flaps, even slightly, the stall margin will increase, but you will have reduced the margin to possible structural failure. The stick shaker burping is only annoying. Possible structural failure can be fatal. Operate the flaps only in accordance with the flight manual.